Cool. The next thing, Paul's going to have a little bit of a chat about the next part of the session, really. So we've done our planning beforehand. We've done some decision making on the day. We've done some initial warm-up activities. And now it's just moving on to that next part of like starting to shape the session slightly and moving things forwards.
So quite a lot of considerations to have in place, of which some of those we've already covered. So if we're looking at a ferry gliding scenario again, you know, what's directly downriver, what's going to happen? So if somebody messes it up and swims at this point, have I got a nice flat section that I can sort it out, or are they going to suddenly drop over something? Also from a psychological point of view, you don't want anything too nasty behind you, because that's going to affect their performance if they're worried about, oh, if this goes wrong, I'm going to drift over, it's going to end up down there. And then what's really important as well is where you position yourself as the coach. So you need to be able to see what's going on, obviously, and observe the people's performances, be able to give them feedback, but also be able to deal with anything. So, you know, not necessarily moving around and demonstrating stuff whilst your participants are doing the task. And it's quite a hard thing to manage because at all levels, beginner, introductory, intermediate, that group's going to work as individuals. So potentially, if you've got 3 or 4, or you've got 3 people in your group, you're going to need to have 3 mini sessions all operating as those people develop at different speeds and at different stages. So it's very unlikely it's going to be one session that fits all at that point. So there's a few considerations to have up your sleeve, and then having some tasks, a range of tasks that you can put into those sessions. So is it about changing angle, edge, and speed for ferry gliding? Is it about changing your trim? Is it about the length of your paddle stroke? If you're paddling forwards, where's the entry point? Where's the exit point? Where do I sit in my boat? Do I lean forwards? Do I lean backwards? Do I sit upright? So it's having all of that technical knowledge in the background to be able to change things and give people tasks. But again, what we need to be doing is making those tasks appropriate to that individual. So what you sometimes see, and this is no reflection on anybody here, but what you sometimes see is somebody seeing somebody deliver a task, a session, and they go, oh, that's great, I'm going to nick that idea and I'm going to use that, and that's going to be my go-to session every single time. But that might be relevant for one of your 3 clients, but it might not be relevant for the other 2. So it's being able to pick out from your observation session those key points that you need to then change or develop in your clients. So going back to those processes that Reese was saying earlier about body, boat, blade, brain, and background, I think with the 5 you used, maybe not in that order. You know, so you're not going to hit all of those at a time, are you? So you know, the first time you observe them, maybe watch what their body's doing. Anything there I can change. The second time they cross the river or they do the task, anything I can change to do their boat, and so on and so on. Yeah, and then that's kind of those 5 areas then encapsulated by those other 4 that Reese mentioned: is technical, tactical, psychological, and physiological. And they're kind of the technical tactical is really, really the bits you're probably going to focus on to start with. And then I would say you need to be mindful of the other 2, the physiological and the psychological. And again, it's that deductive bit. So for example, I had a gentleman that was fantastic at draw stroking on his right-hand side and really struggled on his left-hand side. And it took almost half the day before he told me, you know, that he got 4 pins in his left wrist and found it really difficult to do anything on the left-hand side. So, you know, it doesn't matter what I could have done to coach him. He was restricted movement because of these pins in his arm. Cool. So we also talk about sometimes things something called games with aims. Yeah, so that's kind of linked to your tasks as well. So how can we make these tasks a bit more fun, a bit more enjoyable than just, you know, paddle across the flow, paddle back again. So we've already talked about we can do it with our eyes shut. Can we do it at different speeds? Can we do it trying it leaning forwards, leaning backwards? What effect does that have on it? Are there little rocks and stuff that we can stop behind and create little challenges? So it's just having a repertoire of different things we can do at different places that make it a bit more interesting than just ferry glide across, ferry glide back again. How's that?
Cool. And as you mentioned earlier on regarding the ferry gliding, like before we go and do any ferry gliding, people should have a good understanding of forward paddling, which was like a really good thought process to be having. And that kind of brings us into like, you know, those needs and wants. Like, you know, if someone wants to be able to paddle good grade 3, for instance, like you know, that's what they've come to wanting to be able to do, then we need to make sure that all the bits that need to go into that process have been ticked off as well. So if we have to spend 20 minutes, half an hour working on forward paddling, it's making sure they understand why we're doing this. It's like, oh, okay, like today we're going to be just starting off with a little bit of white water forward paddling technique, just to make sure we're happy in a grade 3 environment. So I haven't told them we're working on forward paddling or flat water forward paddling. I've said white water forward paddling. So I've given it a new name just to try and make it a little bit more enticing, a little bit more appealing for ticking that box of what they actually want to be doing. So change the language slightly will make things a little bit more appealing for that individual. And it's showing how that fits into their want. So I've identified it as a need, and I'm getting them to buy into the process by showing how it ticks in or how it fits into one of their wants or their main want. So as coaches, it's great to be able to have that in the back of our mind. How are we able to work with the individual, making sure that what they actually need to get sorted is happening, and how that fits in with that long-term desire, those long-term wants of what they actually want to achieve.